Now, Lot is not mentioned as a prophet in the Bible. The way they decided to fix the problem was that the oldest daughter got their father intoxicated, and she laid with him in hopes to have a son. And then the youngest daughter did the same thing the next night.
Lut alayhi salam, and Lut alayhi salam, or Lot as they call him in the Bible, he is innocent of such claims. They mention that his daughters withdrew from him, from the society, and they lived up in the mountains. They got their father drunk, and they commit zina with him. A'udhu billah.
When I read the story of Noah, nevertheless, his story was important enough to become a major story in the Old Testament, a major story. These stories are found in Genesis. His two sons came to look for him, and they found their father, as it says in the Bible, passed out on the floor, completely intoxicated and completely unclothed. So much that they had to turn their faces. One of them took his outer garment and covered their father, and then they both ran away. Just wait a minute. You know, this just seems to be a little bit unbecoming of a prophet of God. And these you will find their stories in Kings, in the 2 books of Kings. That's nowhere near as great. It's the story of Solomon and one of his wives was an idolatress. She was a mushrika. She worshipped idols. And her attachment to Solomon loved her. And she convinced Solomon to worship idols with her. And not only did Solomon give in to worshiping these idols, but he then built temples to these gods so that other people could worship them. Wait, let's just step back a moment. Is not Solomon the prophet of Israel sent to them? Now, were not the children of Israel commanded to obey their prophets? Yes. So there's a conundrum here. Either they should listen to their prophet and worship idols, completely in contradiction to all of this. So do the children of Israel follow in that, or do they break the commandment to obey their prophet and say, hold on a second, you've lost your mind, we're going to continue to do what God says? So what they do? Or would they be wrong if they worshipped idols? How could God punish them for doing something that their own prophet that was sent to them is doing? And Dawood, or David. There's another story about David with a woman named Bathsheba. And David saw her one day, and he decided that he had to have this woman, so he forced himself. But the fact that she was already married, and her husband was a commander in his army named Uriah. Has, number one, committed a cardinal sin according to the very law he himself is supposed to be instituting. Adultery in Judaic law is punishable by death. Is that David calls for Uriah to come back from the battlefield. And when Uriah comes back from the battlefield, he says, go be with your wife. Why? So that if a child comes, we can attribute it to him. But at this point, what he does is he decides to write a letter to his army. And he writes the letter to his army saying that when the battle becomes very fierce, I want all of you to step back and abandon Uriah, leave Uriah out there on his own so that he will die. And then not only that, he's being so treacherous that he gives it to the very man he's going to kill and making him deliver it. Now this is the worst of people, worst of worst.
We take the earliest gospel, Mark, and we simply have the recorded fact that Jesus went down to the Jordan and was baptized by John.
In those days, Jesus came from Nazareth in Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan.
In the next gospel, the story is already beginning to change.
Then Jesus came from Galilee to the Jordan to John to be baptized by him. John would have prevented him, saying, "I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me?"
And then you get Luke, which is the third in line, and what does he do? He doesn't even mention that John baptized Jesus. It's very subtle.
Now, when all the people were baptized, and when Jesus also had been baptized and was praying, the heavens opened.
Then you get to the fourth stage, which is the latest, Gospel of John, and there's no baptism mentioned at all.
The Vatican is a place in Italy, in Rome, and this is the seat of Roman Catholicism. There's a place within the Vatican called the Sistine Chapel. Within there, what it is you look up at the roof, and there's a massive painting of all of the stages of creation. And the centerpiece of this is a picture of God himself and Adam alayhi salam. But the biggest surprise was actually once I got inside of the door. The first thing I was greeted by in the corner was the body of one of the dead popes. And what they had done is they had embalmed this pope so his body would survive throughout the ages, and coated it in gold. And what the people were doing was coming up and praying to this dead body. A'udhu billah, they were praying to a dead body. And I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, this is supposed to be a place which is the home of my religion. Now, I studied at least enough to know the 10 Commandments. The second of which is you should not make pictures, you should not make images of your Lord. Yet in the Sistine Chapel within the Vatican, we see a picture of God. And all he is an old man with a long grey beard. Is this who you're worshipping? You're told not to make images of your God, and now you're going and doing such things. Practicing Christians, they said to me, why are you growing your beard? Why won't you eat pork? Why won't you drink alcohol? And I'd say, well, the Bible says so. And they say to me, well, no, that's in the Old Testament. We follow the New Testament. I'd say, how is it that you can reject part of what God says and only accept some? Bible, which is called the Book of Deuteronomy. And the Book of Deuteronomy is basically a set of laws which was given to Musa alayhi salam, to Moses. Some of these laws were as follows. I would see that God was saying to the people, you should grow your beards. You should not shave. And I thought that's very strange, because if you see the Pope, if you see our local priest, if you see basically any Catholic on the face of the earth, they're always clean shaven. Saying that you should not become drunk. You should not drink alcohol. I'm thinking, but hold on, when we go to our church every Sunday, the priest actually gives us wine to drink. And it also said that you should not eat pork. You should not eat from a pig. And I thought, gee, this is really amazing, because again, every Christian I know, it's like the most Christian thing you can do.